I did want to get to the unfortunate happenings that were noon yesterday, Mark. I got to get to it. We got to talk about it. Um, did you watch most of it or pretty much all of it?
I saw every play.
Okay. Is it amazing to me how you can have a tackle that's in your program for 4 years and is not ready to play?
If we watched play after play after play after play of any team, you could start to get a feel for which players are creating space, getting a push,
Yeah.
protecting, have the lateral movement and the back pedal talent to protect. And we would start to see subtle differences like in an offensive line when where everybody's competent.
Right.
He was just jumping off the screen. Like when every time Ohio State had a negative play and they would show the replay, it was like, boom, that's what happened. He's getting thrown into Will Howard's lap, and Howard has to sidestep and then get rid of it, or
Yeah.
the running play is blown up. When you have two guys of the talent of Travion Henderson and Quinshawn Judkins averaging 2.5 yards per carry,
Yeah. Yeah.
that it's not them.
No, no, it's not. I would make a few assessments. I mean, obviously, for this thing to work, they have to have balance, and it's a shame because I actually think for the most part, Will Howard's played pretty well. Now, there's still maybe that one throw a game that I wish he wouldn't make, but to be fair. The offense shouldn't be just on him to have to carry it on his arm. He shouldn't have to be Dwayne Haskins circa 2018 where he literally has to carry the offense throwing the ball all the time. If this was an offense that was built to be a balanced offense that can run it and throw it. As we've seen, every better Ohio State offense we've seen has had balance all the way back to the mid 90s. And the thing about it being is, and you know what? To be fair, a lot of the sites talked about it when the Simmons injury happened. And I know it was huge when it happened at the tackle position. But to be fair, you've got to have at least a respectable tackle ready to play. And, the debacle that was the Cotton Bowl last year, I think Justin Fry was on very, very thin ice as the offensive line coach at that particular period of time. And, it's so interesting to me because, they celebrated the 14 team the other day. And that offensive line was not loaded with 5 stars. You know what I mean? It was not. And Ohio State used to be able to develop these 3-star in-state Ohio offensive linemen into pretty solid players. And, you know, that's what we're seeing here, bottom line, is a development issue. And, the coaches have to do two things. They have to recruit and they have to develop. And to just not have somebody ready to play. And here's the other thing too. It Chip Kelly maybe had the worst day in the history of days for play calling. And I think he just freaked out once he saw that the tackle couldn't block anybody because he was afraid to dial up pass plays because he was thinking Howard was going to get killed. But there are things that he could have gone to. He could have gone to quarterback run. It's not illegal to run a jet sweep with Emeka Egbuka or Jeremiah Smith. Last time they've tried those, they worked pretty effectively. See the Sparty game where they ran the jet sweep and Smith scored a touchdown. So, I mean, there are a lot of things in his bag that he could have gone to. They also, I mean, they could have max protect or kept some extra help in for him, to assist on that other side. But bottom line, as people said, once he was getting beat, he should have been out of the game. How you couldn't just pull him and put somebody else in, and the fact that you don't have any confidence to put somebody else in is, yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, I would agree that while I don't pick on play calling very often, there are ways around it. Now, is it easy? Is it optimal? Of course, it's not optimal because you want to be able to call the plays that are the best plays based on your talent, based on the scheme that you're facing, all those things. Those should be the factors that dictate what plays you're calling, not, oh, we got to hide him.
Right.
But that's what the situation was yesterday. And there are things that you can do. You can have a lot of 3-step drops, get the ball,
Right.
slants, some of the things that you mentioned, which I guess they would be running the jet sweep from his left side to right because you wouldn't want to run
Yeah.
it in the opposite direction, or you've got a Mecca Buka running us, 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage to run around that mess. But yeah, it was something else to watch, and that's a discussion we've had on the Buckeye Show a number of times during these off seasons. Is the offensive line recruiting not being to the standard that it needs to be, and the development as well, because it's not just about recruit. Of course, you got to recruit well, but they don't all
Right.
have to be 5 stars. To your point,
Right.
they have developed NFL players out of 3 stars in the past, and the really good programs like Wisconsin and what they used to be as an offensive line factory did the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, it's not like the last however many national champions had, five-star offensive linemen. And that's the way it worked. The other thing I will say, by the way, if Rayola was at least halfway on with a few throws the other day, they'd have really, really been in trouble. And they were fortunate. I did think that, by the way, I must say on the hit by Reese that everybody was going crazy on Mark. I'm sorry. I mean, I lived in a football world where that was actually just good old fashioned. Exactly.
I have
What are
no
we
idea what
doing
they were
here?
calling.
Yeah.
He didn't hit him with his helmet, let alone the crown of his helmet.
Mm, yeah.
Well, yeah, there was headgear that collided. I'd have to go back and watch it, but we certainly saw it enough times that after the play, I was adamant that that was not targeting.
Yeah. No, it was bad. Um, our coach chose to have a conniption on the sideline. I don't know if you noticed that. I mean, that didn't necessarily help things. Some would say he was lucky he didn't get the penalty there.
Yeah,
They just gave him the warning and they didn't give him the penalty. He might have been lucky to not get the penalty there, and that would have really made things bad.
I hate to bring this up and I hesitate to bring it up, but I'm going to because maybe I'm just
I was eventually going to get there if you're not going to get there, and I think
maybe I'm fanning the flame on this one. No, this
go
is
ahead.
specific to that
Okay,
tirade on the sideline
okay,
because I want to be the guy that is the last guy on the internet to be speculating about what's going through somebody's mind. I don't play that game.
right.
However, because of some of the criticism of Ryan Day, I wonder if there is some show there or not.
Yeah, um, I believe kids nowadays use the term sometimes cringe. Some
Sure.
of the stuff he does is just a. I mean, you're trying a little when you try a little too hard at something and it doesn't come natural. I think that's something that comes across to people in a big way and looks that way. And if that's not you, then it's not you. Just be you. You know what I mean? But and
And maybe it is him, and that's why I
yeah,
hesitate bringing that up. But I did.
right,
My son used to hate watching Urban Meyer look like he was about to have a heart attack
yeah,
after every other play. Now, the 3 national championships kind of allow you to get away with whatever
that's right.
demeanor you want on the sideline. But my son, just in particular, used to be like, can he just, he's got to be stressing out his team, acting like that and stressing over everything and holding his hands over his head all the time and down on 2 knees and all
Yeah.
that other stuff that he used to do. And I would say, well, it's worked. So that's all I can
Well,
tell you is that he's got the best winning percentage of all time. So it's worked.
yeah. Plus, I think we were also told there were medical issues at that particular period of time
Sure.
that may or may not have been apparent. That's a different discussion for a different day. It's interesting. Urban and Tress. Even Urban with his great record lost big games. You know what I mean?
Sure.
He lost the 13 Big Ten title game. I lived through 31-0 to, how dare I say, Deshaun Watson. I don't like to bring up that name nowadays, but that Clemson team, he lost some.
Deshaun Watson has hit you from both sides.
Yes, there you go. But I've watched him lose big games is what I'm saying. Obviously we know Jim Tressel had that period of '06 to '08 marker. Would you say 05 to '08 or that time frame
Yeah.
where he had some big games? Now I always felt that Tressel got back a little bit of credibility at the end by winning that Rose Bowl over Oregon and that Sugar Bowl over over Arkansas. So I thought Tressel kind of closed with a couple of really, really solid seasons. I don't know if those were your thoughts as
I
well
agree.
with those
Yep.
9 and 10 teams. But what did both of those gentlemen already have in the bag? What did Tressel do his second year, and what did Meyer do his third year? And I was going to get. This is where I'm going with the larger thing. And I said this at the beginning of the season. To me, this was a make or break season for him. This was a make or break season. And, next week is going to tell a lot because bottom line with this roster, if you can't get to Indianapolis and at least play for a Big Ten championship game, and listen, I understand late November, and late November obviously has to happen, or you won't make it off the field. But at the same rate, I don't know, Mark, to not be able to make it to Indianapolis with this kind of roster, that would be a big time problem in my view.
Well, let's go back to 2022
Yeah,
and what it looked like in Columbus against the team up north, and then what they almost pulled off, but how they looked against Georgia,
right,
who was the best football team in America by far,
right.
except for when they played Ohio State, when they were even best team in America, that
Yeah.
they were that close to winning a national championship after looking that poor. So my point here is that if they do not get to a Big Ten championship, they squeeze into the playoff. That is all that's going to matter is what do they do in the playoff?
I could see that, Mark, but I don't know. Having to take the long road versus not maybe having the buy
Oh, that's
is
not good.
right. Yeah,
And not just not getting the buy, but not getting the second spot out of the Big Ten, because the second spot out of the Big Ten might be a 5 seed. Again, the
right,
5 seed is the best place to be. And
right.
so
Yeah,
that's going to go to the SEC or the Big Ten. That's going to be Ohio State, or it's going to be Texas or somebody like that. And you're in just prime position to play group of 5, Big 12 team or ACC team, and you've got an easier path. But under your scenario, they're not going to be the 5 seed. They would be like an 8 seed
mm,
playing a very difficult 9 game and then having to face the 1.
right.
Yeah, they would have a tough road. So I'm not saying that's optimal, but I'm saying if they do pull it off, if they're playing in the national championship game
Yeah,
after going 10-2, losing, not making the Big Ten championship game, and then making this 3-game run to the national championship game, well, he's going to keep his job, and he should keep his job.
well, yeah. I mean, there. I mean, we're at certain points with this, Mark. Where this point here, then you've got the last 2 games of the season, which are going to be determining factors as well. And then if you get through all that and you are a playoff team, you know, and then you're right. What can you do in the playoff at that particular point? But going in as an 8-9 seed to make some run to the title game, man, that's a tough road to take. That would be
Oh, I'm not discounting that.
yeah,
That's what I'm agreeing with you there. I'm just saying you're still in the playoff and you have the opportunity,
right. No, I
as
hear it.
opposed to they sweep, win the Big Ten championship, and then they lay an egg in the playoff and lose their
Right.
first game.
Yes, yes. Then yeah, pitchforks and the whole thing, you know, torches and all that good stuff may be coming. You know, it's but I listen, I went on, I've said I've felt this was a make or break season. Not that you have to win the national championship, because I've only seen 2 of them in my lifetime, so I have to be somewhat realistic here, Mark. But when you have this kind of a roster, I mean, to not at least play for the Big Ten championship, I think is just a criminal indictment. You know what I mean? Because let's be fair, Mark. Who has a better roster, them or Penn State? I mean,
Ohio State.
and it may be a significantly better roster. I'm not
Yes.
saying Penn State doesn't have some talent. They've got some NFL players, but I still think there's a fairly decent gap.
Well, they've got a better roster than Oregon.
Right. Right. No, I agree. I agree. I mean, and now I would still say that Oregon has a top 5 or 6 roster.
Sure.
I wouldn't say Penn State has a top 5 or 6 roster as you would rank them, Mark. Maybe a top 10 to 12,
Yeah.
you know. I think they're kind of in that second tier as they want to be under James Franklin. See, now that's the interesting thing, Mark. Isn't that dichotomy interesting? James Franklin, who's had his issues with big games, versus Ryan Day, who's had his issues in big games.
Yes, but Ryan Day is what against James Franklin? 5 and
That's right.
0?
That's right. That's right. He has had Franklin's number. Somebody had posted a comment. Ryan Day is the James Franklin of of big game coaches. Oh man. Yeah, I mean, I'm still I want to still be somewhat optimistic, but I think that game is a lot closer to 50-50 next week.